other members. So welcome to the SIG On-Prem meeting, 26th of April. Unfortunately, we don't have a demo for today. We have 2 demos scheduled for the later next 2 meetings, for 10th of May and 2 weeks after that. Let me share my screen. Maybe it will show the agenda. Yeah. So for today, we wanted to discuss two topics. One is SIG leadership. So I sent this email to the mailing list that because Joseph Jacks, he was one of the founders of the SIG, he's kind of engaged outside of Kubernetes now. So it's hard for him to find time to actually help with the SIG. We're looking for some other members. So initially we had declarations from Dalton. I believe Dalton is here, and from Jorge. But since Jorge is also kind of engaging outside of on-premise issues, we'll need to look for some other people. So I know that. Yeah. Hello. Go ahead.
Hey there.
Hi there. So Dalton, so you declared again, right, that you're ready to help and you have some ideas?
Yeah, I'm happy to help more if I can. I'll probably need to sync with you guys about sort of the logistics of how to actually help out with that as a lead. That's all right. Probably offline.
So on practical side, I think it's like well, obviously apart from the meeting, it's actually 2 to 4 hours per 2 weeks, right? So it's not that much, but since we are all busy, sometimes it's a lot of time, really. So I think we still want to run demos, so there will be some job to do to identify, interesting projects, talk to the guys, schedule the demos. I can share, there's a great list that actually Joseph prepared. I think it's curated by CNCF, but I can find it somewhere. So we can use it as an input for projects around Kubernetes. I'll make a note.
All right, great. Do you guys sync with other SIG leadership groups?
Well, the closest SIG is actually cluster ops, right? And usually we have Zahiko here, and he'll be joining today, at least.
It's a similar audience, yeah.
Yeah. Actually. Yeah, there's also idea to actually merge those SIGs. This is something we might consider in the future, but let's see after we fix the leadership problem, how it goes.
Okay.
So we also have I think we have Day One, right? He sent an email that he's also happy to help.
Awesome.
Are you calling Day One?
Yeah. I think so. I'm sorry if I misspelled the name.
Yeah, that's fine. You can call me Derek, because no one can spell it.
Okay. Right. So yeah, I think we can actually talk offline about the ideas, etc., and wait for Marco, because Marco also wanted to be engaged. So give him a chance to speak up. And also, I was hoping that Joseph will provide some input, but yeah, he's probably too busy. I'll try to get him on the next meeting. All right, so yeah, this is on hold for at least 2 weeks now. So fixing documentation. So unfortunately, I was hoping to work on this. I had some ideas. I think where we need to start is actually sync up with the SIG docs. So the question is there anyone with some anyone familiar with the SIG docs workflows, how they work? Because I at least know that there are some requirements for the docs for the deprecation, right? It's not that straightforward just to remove stuff or move it around. So anyone familiar with that workflows?
I'm not directly familiar, but I believe I've heard maybe in the SIG that there's sort of a 3-step process for removing docs or contributing them, maybe less so about contributing them. But there's certainly a process to it that we should probably be aware of.
Yeah, so anyone happy to research that for the next meeting and be prepared, at least so we know how we can start working with them?
Yeah, I'll join that effort too.
Yeah, I think I'd like to look into that too.
Okay, so we have 2 people. I will probably also looking. So yeah, so there's this master plan from SIG Docs. So their plans how to restructure the stuff, but I briefly kind of looked at that, and I was not 100% happy with the ideas there. So I think they're a little bit, they're not. Rob is here actually. They're not kind of taking on-prem very seriously there. So I think it's a good time and good opportunity to engage from our side, but definitely we'll need to give some commitments. So yeah, that's probably something to discuss on the next meeting once we have interested parties on the meeting.
What's unsatisfying about that plan? About the current plan?
The master plan?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's linked here. The form is. So I'm not sure if I fully understand this, but it's marked with the colors, that depict the intention. So there's this entire picking the right solution.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's the on-premise is not even here. It's hidden in different places, right? It's you definitely can do on-premise with Kubernetes. You can do with other technologies, but it's messed up, I would say.
Okay. Can you share that document in the notes in the chat?
Yeah, it's there. It's in the chat. Okay, let me.
Or
it's in the agenda document already.
Oh, it's this master plan. Never mind.
Yeah, so I advise everyone to look at that and think how we could structure that. It's a pity that Marco is not here because I know he already had some ideas. So we were discussing last week, what should be the kind of the main topic, like how you start, what you see when you start reading the docs and what people are looking for. And it turns out that the first choice they do is actually the operating system. I'm still wondering if this is a good approach to kind of start with operating system. So I believe that we could kind of guide them a little bit and keep the structure for hosted, for on-premise, etc., etc. So yeah, let's think about it. And in the meantime, let's look at the documentation team workflows and trying to understand what will be required from us if you want to pick this one up and work on it.
I'm looking for the links that Cluster Ops had done for docs because we had some really helpful. We ended up spending a lot of time on this, and we got some drawings and things like that.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah. So there's this deprecation policy, right? So does it also apply to this kind of documentation or only for features documentation? Rob, do you know how it works, the deprecation policy for docs?
No, I don't.
Okay, all right, yeah.
You really can't deprecate features out of docs easily because you have to. What version of the docs you're trying to support ends up being a really hard problem, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, what I mean is I'm aware about this deprecation policy, but I was wondering if it applies to all the contents of the docs or only, kind of documented features, right? But yeah, because our docs.
I guess I'm not following the question.
So I mean, you cannot just move docs around, right? I mean, if you're changing something, they need to be there for I think 2 releases, right? And you need to mark them as deprecated, etc. So, and what we are intending here is essentially move the docs around. So I'm wondering if this will work.
That makes sense. Do you know if they're using Sphinx or or something like that that creates cross references? Because cross referencing solves that problem. But let me see.
I think what it is, Rob, is they're using Markdown documents, and it's like a Jekyll template for GitHub pages. And I believe that we can do 401 redirects there, which would help, but it's also going to do redirect proliferation throughout the life cycle of the docs. So I'm not certain what their plan is to attack that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've been through this before. We actually started with Markdown for all the docs we do, and then we ended up in RST because you could do cross-reference. It's funny, cross-references and index ends up being killer features. But,
yeah.
Yeah, it's a hard call. Shoot. All right. Don't know.
Yeah, I think, we need to talk to the docs team. So I'll probably set up a call or something, and we'll figure out what we can do and what we cannot. And then,
last time I talked to somebody in depth about this, which was probably 6 months ago now, they were doing exactly that, markdowns with templates, and then if you wanted specific types of documentation, you would have to conform to the templates and decompose the docs into smaller units, which sounds awesome. It just presented more work than we were ready to do. So when we wrote docs, we just did it in a big Google Doc and figured we'd break it up as a separate thing. Was not particularly helpful, but that's sort of that was how we started. Oh dear. Yeah, now. Sorry, I'm reading through the. People are basically dumping in custom solutions into the docs.
Yeah.
Okay.
No one. Yeah, this is the first issue that we identified. Yeah, that this is like a big man's reading, and it doesn't help anyone. So.
Well, the problem is then you end up with a vendor. You can end up with a vendor dumping ground, which we were trying to avoid with cluster ops. We were trying to write vendor neutral install material. But the community is not vendor neutral right now. It's everybody installs using some targeted, even if I consider Cargo, even though it's community, in some ways a vendor thing, because it's an opinionated approach. And so, sorry, I'm giving you guys a whole bunch of sighs in the audio. These are hard problems, and I don't know where to start.
Well, yeah, I completely understand, but I think we can, as a base rule, we can take, we can describe community-supported projects, or even, narrower approach, Kubernetes community-supported project. But then this will rule out some of the cool stuff like Terraform, for example, right, or this kind of stuff. So. Yeah, it will be hard. I mean, it will be hard, and it will take some time.
So if we have time in the meeting, I'm happy to review where we got with the docs, and sort of I can do it from this is what decisions we made. So we had some of these conversations. I can just start us past repeating some of it, maybe. But that's why we ended up with drawings.
So do you mean some particular decisions, or I don't know, some basic rules that you were trying to follow?
We ended up with some basic rules based on a couple hours of discussion as we built the docs, trying to address some of these questions that come up as soon as you start building, trying to build generic documentation. And so, I mean, I don't want to take over the agenda by dumping in some history, but if this is a big thing on the agenda, when people are ready, I will just go ahead and I can give you the background on where we got, so at least you can see we could make forward decisions, if that helps.
So Rob, so can we actually do it on the next meeting? Because as I said, Marco had a lot of ideas. I think very kind of solid ideas that we can take and try implementing. So it would be, I think it would be bad if we don't include him, and he's doing some webinar now, and could not jump on.
I totally I can't do it next meeting because it's during the OpenStack Summit. But I dropped a whole bunch of links in. If we have time at the end of this meeting, I'm happy to do it. But yeah, I totally don't want to take the agenda on DocsRoof on storytelling.
So, Rob, this is actually we don't have a big agenda for today. This is actually last item. So what we can do, I'm interested in that. So we can kind of let all the people just leave if they're not interested. That's the last point. So I'm happy to do that actually. So we'll have more like a one-on-one or one to couple of
it probably would just take 10 minutes to flip through what we had and talk about some of the whys. And then that'll help people know if it's reusable. So
guys, everyone okay with that? Or so if you're not interested, you can just drop and we'll just continue talking about the docs, which might not be very sexy topic for everyone. All right, I don't see any objections. So yeah, I think, all right, Rob, I'm happy to hear about your experience and some of the.
Awesome. If you want, I can I'll drive video.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Let's see. I think you have to give up sharing, and then I
just stop sharing.
All right. Awesome. Yep. Oh, oops, that's the wrong window. Sorry, hold on.
Oh, that's a very good window, but maybe not the most one.
I'm gonna give up and just pick. Let's see if I can do it. I just have a lot of windows open. There it is. Did I get the right one this time?
No, that's still the same doc.
Is it? Shoot. All right, I'm giving up. I'm just sharing my desktop.
Yeah, you need to be careful when you share the entire screen.
Yes.
I have some experience with that.
You can see how many tabs I like to keep open. You just have to multiply that by 5 since I have 5 monitors. I get teased about my tabs. So here's what we did. We started building, and even the title was contentious. We started building this reference architecture document with the idea that we wanted to have it be generic. And then one of the things we did, oh my God, it's been a while. Oh, that's not bad. This is January. We built an outline based on a discussion of different items that we thought needed to be discussed. And so this type of outline's pretty effective. From an architecture, what is production? This ends up being a lot of discussion. We built graphics because that ended up being an important way for people to coalesce around what we were doing, and I'll show you the graphics. But these were the topics that over time kept coming up. So having a whole section on security, day 2 operations, different container models. We'd collected a whole bunch of reference material for it. And then we built graphics to sort of walk people through the process. And so having the graphics helped frame out how we would talk about the documentation. So you could go back and say, all right, in this documentation, we're talking about level 3 items. And these were designed to help onboard people pretty quickly. So we actually worked through what these layers were and what they meant. And so there's a ton of good graphics that we resolved. It took us months of team effort to resolve the graphics. I'll show you one of them. Oh no, this is networking. That one's still in. That one we made some progress on, but let's see. So this ended up being an example. Nobody does it this way anymore. But it's generic. So what we would do is we would have a node, we would show a cluster, we would show how things were connected together. You could see what things what the services were. That ended up being super helpful as a rallying point for writing the docs. Sorry, I'm back to the wrong page. And then what we did was we decided to only document production clusters. So we said, you know what, we're not worried about pilots. If we write documentation, we always target what a production cluster is with assumptions. And then we went through and said, these are the things that we expect in a production cluster. So we were documenting objectives for that. We started building a lexicon. And then the layers ended up helping describe what things were happening in each place. So what we found was we were arguing about like control nodes and worker nodes and things like that. It ended up being that when you said layer 2, it became much more straightforward for what that meant. And then, yeah, we collected, we were starting to collect management best practices. We started to build documentation at each layer. And then we put together a template for each section. So the API service, which we were going to document, we started having a standard template. This is where we ran out of gas. And we were going to try and document like ports, service names, descriptions about each one of those pieces. So here's layer 3. Here's some configuration. And then this is the other thing that's important. So we ended up with an implementation that was based on a certain cluster size. So what we said was, look, we're going to do at least this. We didn't worry about node sizes, although we have some of that information. It was just, here is how many things we think you need, at least this many for the documentation we're going to describe. And that was a big deal. Once we agreed that we only described basically a minimum cluster of, 8 nodes, 8 functional nodes, then that helped sort of define what we were talking about. Wow, we wrote a lot of stuff. Mostly outlining. It's just, so we got started with how this stuff goes. We started to describe intercluster communication.
Is this present upstream anywhere?
It's upstream in that it's in open documents that people can access. So we never managed to get it into Git. That was the next step. Oops.
Okay. Like an average user in the community, would they see this ever?
They would if they were attending. So we were doing some blogs about it, and we were doing and Cluster Ops was talking about it every week. So we were taking about half of every meeting to talk through those types of changes. So a traditional Cluster Ops meeting would be a certain amount of like background business, hot bugs, things like that, and then we would transition into trying to move the docs a little bit forward. So you'd get something like this, and this evolved out of a couple of months of work. Actually, we started with some face-to-face meetings, and then we'd review what this looked like. It's all. I mean, this is all Kubernetes community property. So adding to it and extending it makes a lot of sense. We'd love to have these. The graphics are still useful, and there's no reason not to put them in community.
So what is the plan for now? Are you guys, is the intention to put them on the main documentation, like Kubernetes IO page, or are you suffering from lack of resources, or there are some other problems?
We would love to have them on Kubernetes main page. It's a matter of resources and review time. Yeah. So this was we wanted to have like a doc hack day where we could just pull everything together. super hard to pull together.
Mm.
And I'm perfectly willing, if people are going to the OpenStack Summit, to sit down, look at these pictures, and hack them. I want them used. I don't. We have no desire to create graphics that don't get pulled into community somehow.
Yes, sir.
But our experience ended up being that the drawings were very helpful when it came to documentation. That we could write pages and pages of documentation painfully, but if we had a good graphic showing things, then it really consolidated discussion in a neutral way.
Yeah, that's definitely very useful, but also takes a lot more time, right, to prepare.
Once you get a good drawing, if you can drop it in a doc, then it becomes easier for people to write material that supports the drawing. And vice versa, right? If they're just writing text into the void, it became very hard to do. But once you had a drawing, the drawings became much more self-explanatory, and we felt much better about drawings.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, but yeah, I understand, the pros and cons, but it's also, very hard to work with the graphics in a kind of distributed environment when you cannot really version them, whatever. It's just much harder. So people avoid it, right? Anyway, I agree with Matt that the exposure for this is critical, and I'd love to see it on some community documentation pages. I'm not sure what are the rules to allow documentation to be accepted, but at least we should have some community corner when you can put such stuff. But I think it's it's good enough to be like the main documentation. And also you mentioned that you need this to be reviewed. So wouldn't it be easier to just start contributing this as just normal GitHub PRs and get people to review it, or what's your experience?
So I don't know. I'd love to have a suggestion on how to get this drawing into GitHub in a way that allows people to do a useful review. GitHub works great for code, but putting a picture in it makes it, there's no real way to mark up this picture.
Rob, there's some wiki space. Why not use that?
I'd be happy to use it if that makes sense.
Well, it can be a starting place until the community starts saying, "Hey, move it here." If it's in the wiki, it's on OpenStack.org. And it's no, wow, wrong. Freudian slip. It's on Kubernetes IO.
Yeah, that would be great. We were basically versioning these things in the cluster ops meetings in space, because you can actually share, right? We can give people auth to the Google Doc just fine.
You can't Google Docs.
No, you can't at all.
I'm gonna land on it.
So yeah, if you have a suggestion on where to drop it, please. I would love to get this stuff out, because I feel like if more eyeballs saw it, we'd make progress.
Rob, I never did that, but I did a quick search, and it looks like GitHub has a pretty decent image diff options, right? I don't know where this image needs to be stored or whatever, but it looks like visually it looks kind of interesting. So I think for reviewing the charts, the graphics, etc., it can be useful. So at least it wouldn't be a blocker.
I think Git will show you before and after graphics side by side.
Yeah, and also you can do the skin on the onion skin, right? So you can kind of, but it doesn't make sense probably for this kind of graphics.
Well, so do people have a suggestion on where I can drop them? Because I'm happy to get them out there so we can review it, because it would probably help the docs effort.
Yeah. So what I think is that we want to take a look at this documentation, workflows, processes, procedures, whatever. So we will know a little bit more next week. I think we can use it for all the docs, that you guys worked on cluster ops, and for the cleanup that we want to do from on-premise perspective. Yeah. So Charles volunteered to kind of check the process. So I hope we'll hear some more on the next meeting.
Cool. If people want access to the docs, like edit access, just if you ask for access, if you don't have it, I'll grant it.
I think I can take a look at this too, but should I cooperate with Charles with this one to discover the process?
No. I think what we want to know is actually what are the limitations for us. So we want to do some cleanup for the on-premise docs. So we need to know what we can do and what we cannot do, because there are those deprecation policies. I think docs team is using some pretty strict workflows for that. So we just need someone that will be kind of familiar with these processes.
Okay. So do we want to define what we want to put into the docs? I think we can do this in parallel, right? Because I don't think we just need a matrix of what we can do with different distributions of Linux. I think we also need something like what works in on-prem and what works on the cloud doesn't work on the on-prem, or what coverage of the text are. Because that's something I think we should also do on-prem.
Yeah, we definitely want to have the section that would present some limitations on premise, because there are many, right? So we don't want users to expect the same level of service, let's say, from on-premise installation that they would get from the Google Cloud or even AWS installations, right? Because there's a lot of kind of helping services that make the experience much nicer, let's say. So we want to kind of list those limitations.
I think it might be valuable to go through actually all the things that the cloud provider integrations do currently, because they provide a number of different integrations or features on AWS or Google Cloud, but actually a lot of those problems people are solving in one way or another for bare metal. Like everybody's doing something for ingress. They're not just, these clusters don't live by themselves. I think once we have that idea of, usually storage integrations and ingress are the two that come to mind for what the cloud provider integrations are offering, that like dash cloud provider on all the kubelets and stuff. It might be interesting to document first just the areas that you don't get for free on bare metal, just because you don't have those integrations, and then follow up with what we would do about it.
Yeah, I think we even have some draft of this document because I remember I was preparing it like a long time ago. So I'll try to find it.
Awesome.
We put some observations there, and we also marked the as you said, the areas when on-premise is lagging behind a little bit. Oh, well, let's not call it lagging behind, but it's just different from the cloud offerings. Yeah. So I think we have it already. It might not be perfect, but it can be used. So I'll try to find it.
It also might be interesting if we had folks in the SIG working on contributing tests upstream. I guess with on-premise in mind, it might be a way that we can contribute as well as docs.
Yeah. Does anybody have a standard like an Ansible template that runs the conformance tests?
That's something that we do in the Juju side. Is we get that charmed up, and that's part of our basic validation.
Okay.
So it's repeatable, but we can extrapolate the learnings there. There's nothing that's super specific to Juju.
Yeah, I think that Matt also has some stuff there. I think we're even writing some test runner containers just run the tests for the specific commits. So we might also have some templates. whatever.
Yeah, I was hoping that we'd see it or be able to work on it in the cargo space too. I need to talk to Greg about it. We've been preoccupied.
We do conformance tests against dictational bare metal clusters as well. I think maybe less interesting than the configuration aspect of that is just sort of collecting together all the people doing running those tests regularly, and then maybe those folks have ideas about new tests that could be added to the suite of tests.
How much of that is an overlap with what's currently going on with Kubernetes? Because Kubernetes is supposed to be the kind of like official source for that data where we submit, and it's kind of a dumping ground for aggregating those results.
It's a good question.
I don't know.
Because I know that was one of the target goals for us when we did that integration, was getting those results published back upstream to Kubernetes. And we've had a hit and miss with that. The integration path is still a little funky, but the people that Fedgta and the folks in SIG testing are super helpful.
Okay. So in the process of doing that, did you come to any conclusions about things you would like to see more tests for in on-premise environments? Because I noticed there just really are not a lot of tests compared with all the other providers.
Well, that's actually what we're running is the baseline conformance test. We're not doing any of the cloud provider tests. It just actually increased from 113 to 147, I believe, or the grand total as of the 161 release. So it's getting better, but you're right. There could be a lot more in there. We have some interesting flakes that are currently being flagged as well. I'd have to go back through and aggregate the results. But I believe that there's like 3 or 4 that are consistent flaky regarding like downward API and some of which require privileged container access, which is interesting as well. That should be configurable. But no, as far as like off the top of my head, I don't have anything specific, but I think that there's definitely room for us to talk about that and continue down that path.
Okay. Maybe a future topic.
All right, that's a good input, actually. Yeah, I think that there were some ideas to work on the tests. Yeah, this is why we need some more leadership and more help just to kind of remember about all of this stuff and to start coordinating that.
Now, Thomas, I'm willing to help be part of the leadership committee if it's like, not one dude doing leadership. I'd be happy if there's like a group of us, because to be completely honest, time is tight, right? And I'm trying to spread myself across a couple SIGs. So I'm sure that there are others in this meeting that can relate.
Yeah, that's actually the idea, and that was also original the Joseph's idea at the beginning. We were even talking about some kind of regular changes, whatever. Yeah, we'll probably do that. So yeah, let's wait on, I think, for Marco, which is Marco attending the OpenStack Summit in 2 weeks?
Yes, he will be there.
Okay. So let's figure out if we can meet in if we can have like a forum or all interested parties, and then we'll decide.
Did you say that you had sent a mail to the list regarding the leadership? Because that's probably where I should follow up and continue the conversation.
Yeah, there's an email. Well, it has very straightforward subject. It's I think it's help running the SIG, something like that.
Okay, I'll go dig in the group and fish that up and make sure I reply to that.
Yes, please. Yeah, it's called like the subject is call for help with running the SIG. Yeah, so there's some follow-ups just posted just recently, so it should be kind of unread for you if you go for a web interface for the groups. Actually, I will paste the link in the chat. All right. Okay, do we have anything else? I think we'll at least form some further agenda items. All right, looks like no. So thank you, everyone, and see you in 2 weeks.
All right.
I'll see some of y'all at the OpenStack Summit.
Oh, yeah. Bye-bye.
Cheers, everybody.
See you guys.
Ciao.
Bye.